Can-Am, they would have.
There's that one filter that's like in one filter. I know my motor tractor, or the one.
So
Yeah, cane.
I don't have it with me today. It's 7 o'clock.
Oil.
You ever seen how the old heat, because he's restoring two and the other one's older, but it's the heater is in the floor. Can't remember exactly what it was, but it's a pipe that goes from the engine and goes to the front, and that's your heater, is like hot air from the engine.
Right.
I'm like,
Yeah.
could that kill you? And he's like, I don't think so.
Well, the old Volkswagen Bug was air cooled,
Yeah.
so there was no antifreeze to heat. Yeah, so it was a.
It was insane. There was some ingenuity that went into those, though.
Are we ready to start?
Hey, yeah, we better get started.
I'm gonna unmute the mics and start the recording. We're good to go.
All right. This meeting will come to order. This is the Erda City Council meeting held on Thursday, November 10th, 2022 at 7 p.m. We're at the Tooele County Auditorium located at 47 South Main Street, Tooele, Utah. This meeting is being broadcast over Google Meet and also YouTube. We'll start off with a roll call. Scott Dubay.
Here.
Dale Martin.
Here.
Jesper is here. Craig Smith.
Here.
Terry Miner.
Here.
We are all here tonight. Okay, would you lead our pledge tonight?
Yeah, absolutely.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, straight into public comment. Anybody online raising hands?
No.
Okay.
Seeing none, I move we close the public comment.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, we close public comment. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, public comment is now closed. All right, any discussion or corrections for meeting minutes from October 27th? I'll move that we approve these minutes.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded, we approve these minutes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, meeting minutes are approved. Doesn't look like we have the sheriff with us tonight. He's probably out celebrating. Joking. And we also have the Tooele Fire District on our agenda tonight.
So I was hoping that Chief Nunn would be here. He said he was going to be here, so I'll fill in for his stead. North Tooele Fire had 10 calls in Erda last month. We participated in Chipper Days, where we go and rent a mill to grind up broken trees to remove the workload. We did dumpster days. And when I say workload, I should say fire load, right? We did dumpster days as well for the same reason. We also participated in trunk or treat, and the Erda Station, the Division of Air Quality, is expanding their facility on our property. Any questions?
Division of Air Quality has.
So we have a air monitoring system at the Erda Station back in the southwest corner. We have to monitor air quality for things like open burns. If you want to get a burn permit,
I see.
there's a clearing index that has to be met. It has to be above 500 feet, so that the smoke will mix in the air. On a nice sunny day, that clearing index is really low. The best time to start a fire is right before a storm, but then it's always going to be blowing and windy, so don't do it that day either. Any other questions?
How high does it go up in the air?
The smoke, well, the clearing index is it, so we require, we don't require, the state monitoring division of air quality requires that the clearing index is over 500 feet. So what happens is you'll have a header go up and it hits that ceiling, and then it will spread out as a haze. And it's kind of cool. You can actually see it if you're off away from it. The smoke will go up and then stop and then just drift across.
Really?
So that's why we require it to go higher. Usually your clearing index, before a storm will be 10,000 feet or so, and then, it gets up and gets away so it doesn't cause cancer for all of us.
These wood chips from Chipper Days, where do they go?
So some individuals who had their own trees wanted to keep their chips. We allowed them to do that. There's a bunch of them that are left over that's in the parking lot of the fire station at Stansbury. I'm sure that if you made arrangements with Chief Nunn, he would be happy to give
You have to do that.
all of our citizens as many as they want.
Fantastic. You can't give me as many as I want, but.
There's a lot.
Great.
There's probably a dump truck and a half full. So maybe 10, 15,
West
20.
Valley gives them away for free. 200 yards of them so far.
Well,
What did you do with them?
Well, some people think that Erda dirt's not all that grand. And we use them for gardening.
200,
Yards. And what started out that thick is now that thick and needs to be built with the back.
so they're available. I'm sure.
You guys load them?
No.
Do that.
Okay.
Okay, do that, and then there's a couple of things when I'm done. We gotta get it deposited into checking, $780.25 for building permits, $210 for business licenses. We got $27.80 in interest. Our expenditures, $750 for accounting, $5,000 for legal. Ensign Engineering, $19,527.50. North Twilla Fire District impact fee for homes, $1,676.79. Clerk salary, $887.28. And then state tax, $50, and federal tax, $311.54 that go along with the clerk salary, for a total of $28,203.11. And then I got an email from our accountant that says the final draft of the financial report with no findings is on its way. So, and then with that, I think John had something to talk about. First, did anybody have any questions on what I just did? Any answers?
We received a proposal from the Bullock County for services. And Terry and Craig formed a committee to work out a response, and I just wanted to relate to you what the response was and make sure that you're okay with it. First of all, the roads, they had a provision in there that says, or could be received. So what, we're going to amend that or propose that we're going to give you all our B and C road funds and all our registration taxes that's pretty straightforward. I can't imagine I'll have a problem with that. We'll tell them what those amounts are, rather than the would be. Then, police services. So they've proposed a formula, and it turns out to be for October, November, and December for $72,000, and then for the next 18 months, $85,000 a quarter. But it's based upon a formula where approximately 70% of the municipal fund is allocated. So we're proposing to send back to them a proposal for 2023 that it's 65% of the municipal service funds collected within Erda, plus a 12.5% administration fee. And that will result in approximately about $77,000 a quarter for police services. Then for 2022, the same formula, but it's going to be the municipal services taxes collected from Erda for 2022. And then we'll also add a provision that we want to reconcile all funds, because we think we may have been shorted on property taxes. Sales taxes is going to be impossible to determine because the state does it. And I guess we make a decision, what's our next step? Do we work towards our own police force or not? Because, how long can we carry this?
So,
And we've been told that at the end of June 30th, 2024, they're not going to do it anymore. Is that right?
That was the sentiment of the county council.
Right.
These services will end June 2024.
so explain in a little bit more detail what the municipal service tax, that's a property tax that they already levy, right?
Well, okay, when the county levies a tax, it levies a tax for municipal services within the Erda area, prior to Erda becoming an incorporation, becoming a city. So whatever was collected in there for that municipal service, and I understand that the only service they provided based upon that fund was police services. So basically, it's how much you collected in property tax from within Erda.
And that's already on the rolls, they're already doing that, right?
Yeah, they were doing it. They're not doing it now. Well, Erda's collecting its own tax now.
Yeah.
So historically, the municipal service fund has paid 60% of the sheriff's budget and 40% has come out of the county general fund. The proposal that they sent to us was that 70% of that should be paid from that fund, which will be Erda City, and that the general fund should only pay 30% of the sheriff's budget. So that's what they sent to us, and we're looking at sending it back saying, let's split the difference. The numbers really show that 65% is closer to the appropriate amount. The county will still make money at that, but not as much money. And we're hoping that we can get at least 3 county council members to agree that it's an appropriate amount.
So they base that on, as I recall, a per capita basis of the entire budget for the sheriff's department.
It's off taxable value of the house of
Right, but I mean, they came up with a formula, how much they need from us and how much they need from, Rush Valley and Stockton on a per capita basis, didn't they? Isn't that what I read?
No, I was looking at doing some of those formulas, and I ran some numbers a couple different ways, and it essentially always came up about the same. And so it was a little bit more complicated. It had more variables in there, like where you're located. It wasn't a real good, easy way to define what someone should pay. If we run it, that scenario I ran was, Erda's pretty centrally located. We should get some discount for that. If you're in Stockton or Rush Valley, you're much further away, it'll take an extra hour to do a call out there. But like I say, it does become somewhat subjective as to what it should be, especially with the number of calls being so low out there. It just seemed a lot easier to follow the county's method that they had put together and go off of their numbers and try to say, based on your actual calls and call volume in cities and unincorporated areas, that 65% of that budget being paid is probably more appropriate than 70%.
And our proposal to them, what's the figure per quarter?
Well, it's approximately 77,000.
Plus dispatch.
But it needs fine.
Plus dispatch.
Yeah, that does not include dispatch.
Well, that's about 25.
32.
32 per year.
Yeah.
For the year, we've got it's 32 something for until June. We're good till June, then they'll stay us in there into July.
Yeah.
So we're really about 300,000 plus the dispatch.
Comes out to close to 350.
Yeah, it's gonna come out, close to $350,000 for a year.
So what we need is like a head nod from three of us to tell John to go ahead with that proposal.
If we don't, we run out of law enforcement in 2.5 weeks, right?
If we don't get a contract done with them midnight, November 29th, there is no law enforcement or roads service in the city.
John, if say this doesn't happen, what's the state law? Are they required to respond to emergencies?
The sheriff will respond to emergencies, but if you have a prowler or something else, they may not show.
You get a car stolen,
Yeah.
they're gonna say, good luck with that.
So non-emergencies, they won't respond, but emergencies they will. So if we don't get a contract figured out for emergencies, they could basically be doing this for free on their part.
But that's all they would be doing. is responding.
Yeah, emergencies. So someone breaks into your house, steals your car, hooks up your horse trailer, takes your horse and drives off.
Yeah.
They're not
Not
coming.
only.
But it still would be unfortunate to them if they didn't give us a good enough deal for us to survive,
Yeah,
because then they'll be doing this for free, because we can hire a town marshal very quickly.
Well,
uh,
I don't know about very quickly, but we could.
I think
hire
we
one.
could.
it's not.
I think we could get one pretty quick.
I know when Travis looked at it, he said it would take months to set it up.
Well, if we had to in an emergency, I'm just saying we shouldn't allow ourselves to get pinned in a corner, and we should make sure this is a good deal, because it's in their best interest too to make sure there's a good deal.
So here's what I would like to see. I think we need to be using the sheriff's department and paying them what it's worth. And I think in the next 18 months, we need to, I don't know if there's gonna be a change of councilman or anything, but we need to convince them that dropping service for Erda and Lake Point and Stockton and Rush Valley and Vernon is not in the county's best interest. I would like to see the sheriff's department continue to, and the reason for that is they have a lot more facilities and a lot more resources, a lot more personnel. So they'll have personnel that'll be trained in all kinds of different areas, whereas if we have a two-man force, we're not gonna have many experts. And I think that benefit also goes to all those other communities in Tooele County. And
That whole thing goes on budget. We
I know,
need what we can pay for.
yeah, I know.
Regardless of what we want, I mean, it'd be nice to have Secret Service or something that we can't afford. We just need to be able to pay what we can so we can still survive from year to year.
I've been through this 3 times with other cities, and nobody is concerned about the service. It's great service. The problem is the cost. And it's nothing new here. It's nothing new in three other situations I've handled in the past. All three of those others have formed their own police force, unfortunately.
But what size of a police force were they able to afford?
Most 50, 60 police officers.
Yeah.
It's a pretty big police force.
Yeah.
Not near as big as the counties.
Right, so that's a pretty big force where you would have those experts.
Right. Yeah, so back to my point is, everybody likes the service provided. The question is, can you afford it? That's really what Terry's saying. You'd love to have a big house.
Even by the.
If you can't afford it,
They ain't gonna do it anymore, so we need to be seriously looking at getting our own services.
I think that would be my plan is, or my preference is we go ahead with the county. But we start looking for what it's gonna take to set up our own police force. Meanwhile, we keep trying to convince the county to be more reasonable. Got a year and a half to do that.
Some only have a year.
I'm a +1 with what Scott just said.
So I'm in favor of sending that proposal to.
That gives you 3.
Who's the third?
Who are the three?
Okay, thank you.
What are your thoughts?
Craig and I recommended it to start
Like
with.
you might not be in favor of this.
Well, I know I'm in favor of this, but as time goes on, if we've got to build our own police force, I mean, we could be forced into having 2 marshals and then them, I don't want to see the sheriff have to do something for free, which he might have to be responding to emergencies for free,
Yeah,
which
they-
isn't in the best interest of the county or our city.
Yeah.
So I think this, in the county's best interest, to give us a good deal, so they don't have to be doing things for free. And we also get a good deal on the back side of that.
Let me know if you agree with what I'm about to say. It doesn't make any sense for us to be literally breaking Erda's bank to be able to afford Tooele County service while simultaneously trying to set up our own. And if it's truly the county's wish that we set up our own police force, if that is what they want us to do, I would hope for some help in that area or some kind of deal that we could work out that we could make sure Erda could afford that.
I agree with that.
But I'm in favor of.
well, to me, I just can't imagine why Tooele would want to cut off their nose to spite their face, because if suddenly Erda goes away, they're gonna have to lay off some officers. That's great for morale. That's great for the police force.
And then you get Stockton, they've got to be on their own, and Rush Valley, and Vernon, and Lake Point. What are they gonna have left? I mean, it seems like
Corrections.
they're gonna be just a little tiny. Yeah,
Well, and policing's not cheap.
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, John.
So that ends the treasurer report.
Okay. No questions, comments regarding finances?
Yeah. What was our agreement with the county about staying on the garbage contract?
7 years.
What's the out?
Did we commit to stay there for 7 years, or did we just say, well, let's just go on with it?
It was a 7-year.
I believe there was
commitment.
5.5 years left on the contract, and we are committed for the entire contract.
Okay. Good to know, because we can make money on that without hurting our citizens.
It would cost them, so that's why they allowed us to be on it.
I know. So there's $100,000 a year that we're chipping into the county general fund out of the Erda trash collection.
Kind of thought we were making friends with that sentiment, but maybe not.
I suspect when that contract comes up, we'll probably do our own.
Yeah.
It worked out in the benefit at the time
Yeah, it did.
because we had no way of billing or collecting or doing anything else or providing that service. But at the end of that contract, I suspect we'll be in a different position to do our own.
No more interruptions. interruptions.
Okay, we ready to move on? All right, we have a proposed ordinance 22-35, rezone of property located at approximately 524 Bryan Road, Erda, Utah, more particularly described as Lot 3 Painted Acres subdivision, Tooele County, from RR5 to RR1 with conditions. Paul Coons rezone application 1-2022. We have a public hearing for this. I move that we go ahead and open public hearing.
Second.
Moved and second, we open public hearing. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, public hearing is now open. We've got my laptop here with the projector. My laptop went to sleep. I believe our planning and zoning chairman, Corey Warnick,
So he could do that after the public hearing.
after public hearing, not during.
I would suggest, and then he could answer any questions that come up in the public hearing.
Then Mr. Coons, I'd invite you to,
Same thing. I mean, if there's questions, he could answer them after the public hearing.
okay, so not have the applicant.
No, I want to talk to him, but you shouldn't have that back and forth in the public hearing.
I see what you're saying. Well,
So in the planning commission meeting, we had him come up before the public hearing and had him do all of it. I suppose you could do it either way.
well, public hearing is open. Let's hear the public if they have anything to say, and then we'll close public hearing, and then we'll proceed to allow Paul some time and also Corey some time. How's that sound? Okay. Anybody online?
No hands raised.
Anybody in attendance with us here tonight like to speak on this?
Seeing no one, I move we close the public hearing.
Can I make a comment or a question?
Yes?
Is this the property that's going to be, excuse me. My name is Buck Peck. I'm not representing the the fire department, but I'm a citizen only. Is this the area that is going to be on the the east side of Erda, or east side of 36, by
And south of Bryan Road.
Bryan Road, yeah.
The only concern that I would have is I don't believe that there's any water to those lots that are proposed back behind.
Thank you.
I move we close that public hearing.
I already seconded it.
Been moved and seconded. We close public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, public hearing is closed. Paul, would you like to speak your piece, or would you?
Okay. I asked Jess to pull up this interactive zoning map in the county so you can get a little bit better picture of what's going on here. So this is my piece right here. This R1 is 0.87 of an acre. And then you have a 1 acre and a 1 acre here, and this one's 2 acres. And so this is non-conforming R5. I did the density on that, and there is 32.72 acres in this area here. There's 16 lots there for a density of 2.04 acres density in that overall area. With the 4 lots that I'm proposing behind here, and my house is up front, so there'll be 5. That puts me at 1.98 density overall for the 9.9 acres, which is pretty close to what that is here. And then again, this is a 1/4 acre lot on the corner and 1.8 on that corner there, and then further down there was some 3/4. But you can kind of see, you know, this is all R1. If this non-conforming was actually fixed to conform to the zone, that would align that whole section out, you know. Of course, you got the other R1s that are kind of scattered here and there, but that's basically the gist of it. But I figured that would give you a better idea of what's in the area.
Thank you. All yours.
Questions for him before we get up? Well, I want to start off by apologizing to the applicants, Mr. Coons and his wife. Kind of new as a city, as a planning commission. Don't know exactly how things work, and I'm still learning. So I think that I probably could have done a better job 2 weeks ago explaining our recommendation to the council. And I know we have a city planner in the works, and that hopefully will help things be smoother. So please accept my personal apology that I didn't do a better job 2 weeks ago explaining our recommendation. That being said, I have a couple of points and or questions for the city council, mostly rhetorical questions. Obviously, this is not a comment. You're welcome to respond or not, but at least rhetorically. Number one, this is the general plan. As you can see, I think that some of us have in our mind for some reason that this line between the light yellow, which is low intensity, and the kind of medium yellow, which is medium intensity, goes down SR 36. It does not. It goes down Drew Bay Road. Right? So everything east of Drew Bay is low intensity. And as we've discussed that, and we were all part of making this plan, all of you, all of us, all of the public, the general idea that I hear is that that's typically 5 acres and larger, and this is like 1 acre. And that's further illustrated by the fact that all the homes, all is an absolute term, not all. The large majority of homes in that area are on 1 acre lots, right? The point is that Mr. Coons' application falls west of Drew Bay Road. Even though it's east of 36, it's on the general plan, it's still in the medium intensity zone, which clearly fits exactly everything else that is in that zone. The taxpayers of Erda paid $25,000 to have this general plan done, right? We had months, I believe it was April, May, and June of input, and everybody voted on it. If I'm not mistaken, it passed the Planning Commission and the City Council unanimously. This should be our overviewing document, what we're using to compare. I know we're going to talk about, and Mr. Coons talked about the rezone and what's around it. That's great, but in the future, in 10, 15, 20 years, this is what we all have decided it should look like. And it fits the general plan. So I guess, if we're going to spend that kind of money on a general plan and we're going to get all of this input, we should use it. There's a reason we have it, and we need to keep that in mind as we're making decisions. That's the whole purpose of it. Otherwise, I mean, unless the idea is that we're just going through the motions because the state made us and we're not going to actually use it. We just did it to check a box so we can say that we're following the law. I don't think that's the intent. The intent is for us to actually use what's been put in place. A second point/question I have is about the Planning Commission, right? It's another state mandate. We had to have a Planning Commission. These rezones come through us as a recommendation. This rezone, as well as the Fackler one, both of them came with unanimous vote of approval for the rezone. I understand that it shouldn't be the only thing you guys consider, and you can go against that if there's good, solid reasons or something we haven't considered. My concern is that, to my knowledge, at least to me, nobody reached out or said, hey, what were you thinking? Or did you consider this? Or why have we not talked about this? Or there was just, I mean, maybe some of you reached out to the people you have appointed, but I haven't heard any of that. The idea of a planning commission is to get another set of eyes on it. And if it passes unanimously, that should carry a lot of weight, right? And maybe not all the weight, but if you're going to go against that, there should be a really good reason, and you should have talked either to the person you've appointed or to the whole planning commission or to the chairman or something. And the fact that didn't happen is a little bit, I don't know, concerning, something to consider, something to think about.
So you're saying you have the sole authority?
No, absolutely not.
You guys voted for it, and we should just ignore it and
Nope, it's
go
not.
with you?
It's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying if there's a unanimous decision one way or the other, you should at least consider it. And I didn't hear any feedback or any questions from anybody. Why did you vote this way? Or why did you think about this? Or did you guys have a discussion about this?
This wasn't even voted on, either one of them.
This rezone?
Yeah. But the motion didn't pass to send it to vote, so it didn't even show.
The motion didn't carry because it couldn't even get a second.
So nothing was voted on last meeting, is just what my point is on that.
Right. Because the motion failed. And that's kind of my point. The motion failed.
So I just would hope and encourage you guys in the future, if there's, especially if there's a unanimous recommendation, great, go against it. That's fine. But just try to understand how the planning commission got to their decision, why they thought that. If you're going against it, say, hey, did you consider this? Let's have I mean, we should work together, right?
So if it's not unanimous, shoot it down.
Well, if it's 4-3, even then, you could, I mean, it's a good idea to say, hey, what do the people on this side say? Maybe we bring in 2 members of the planning commission, one that was for it, one against, and kind of say the 2 sides. But at least to have that input. Does that make sense? That's what I would ask. Obviously, you're not bound to do that. You guys are the elected ones, and you can do what you want.
I got a quick.
Yes, sir.
statement while I got here.
Go ahead.
Clarify a couple of things. I've been on a planning commission before and sent recommendations to the county and had it significantly changed, rejected, or denied, make me scratch my head and wonder some of the same things. But they look at it through a different lens and different people. And that's why it's a recommendation.
Sure.
But also, for the record, I was there in every one of those planning commission meetings, and I talked with the planning commission people. To say that nobody looked at it or thought about it or talked with them would be inaccurate, because I was there.
That's fair. I apologize, Craig. You have been there. I didn't have a discussion with you specifically, but you were there and you heard the discussion, so I stand corrected. Thank you.
Corey, so
Yes, sir.
it occurs to me, I wonder if we need to somehow have a coordination meeting. No, that's not an LDS term.
I think the city planner will do a lot of this interference.
Sure.
Well,
It'll be her, she'll come.
but it occurs to me that maybe the city council and the planning commission in some sort of a meeting need to understand each other's perspective.
Sure.
Probably a little bit better. And that way, we would understand what you're looking at, and maybe you would understand what we're looking at. For example, how do we define medium density?
It's a great question. I think that that was a recommendation from SOMAS to not put intensity, no, to not put density. They said intensity, medium intensity. And it's left a little ambiguous on purpose so that we can manipulate that as the 5 of you so desire.
And maybe if we each, both our council and your council, had a better understanding of what we each think that means, that might settle some of this.
Sure.
This has been going through my mind that, I know almost everybody on the planning commission, and I wondered if they might be thinking what you were kind of alluding to, that, man, why are we on this commission or this committee if what we say doesn't carry weight? Well,
that's a good point. Like, when I say that, it's not just me saying that. I've heard it, right?
Yeah.
I definitely agree with it, but I've heard it. So I think it's great to get on the same page. And to Craig's point, it's fine. I mean, if we give you something and you reject it, that's part of how the government works, and I get it. Just be nice to know, that we're heading in the same direction, and if there's a reason, just like Terry's talking about, we talk together and work on the same team. And right down that line, it's a good segue to kind of the next thing is, I'd like to know, maybe when we sit down there, what the council sees as an appropriate rezone, what they see going forward, right? I mean, tonight's about Coons, well, right before that was the Thacker one, and in my view, they're very similar, right? I know that Craig's talked about one's more of a spot rezone, one's not. John's told us neither is. But even the Fackler's faces away from the subdivision they're touching. I don't know, we know about the ECA on one side. It kind of makes me wonder if there's some kind of club for people who have lived here more than 30 years that said, this one's good and this one's not, right? Which is fine if there is, it just needs to be transparent. And
which one is this you're talking about?
well, the Fackler one over in Craig's subdivision.
Oh, Lawson.
The Lawson, I'm sorry, my name is
Okay.
I have Fackler in my mind with it, because isn't that the daughter's name or something?
Yeah, summer.
Her name was on the application, I think.
So, I mean, they're both touching up against either, I mean, her backyard. If you're driving down Craig's neighborhood, which is 5 acres, it doesn't matter if it's touching the backyard to 1 acre lots. And I'm not against that one. I think that was great too. I voted for it, it passed unanimously as well. I'm just saying they're very similar. So if the council's direction is that there's something different, let's, like you said, let's sit down and let's talk about what constitutes a good one and what, right? Do we need to be checking in with certain people or?
No, I don't think so. These are two different bodies that look at things from different
They put
angles.
conditions on that one too. so-
And there were conditions on that one.
Right, and that's fair. There were conditions on that one. I wasn't at the meeting when that one was approved, and I would have tried to do it without conditions, but I'm just one voice. So it did pass with conditions. You're correct, Terry. One more thought on this. I mean, it fits the general plan. In my mind, it fits zoning, especially with all the non-conforming stuff that's touching it up against it, just like the other one we discussed. A thought that I had is, it's interesting. One of the things that we just approved in the planning commission meeting, I know Craig knows this, but I don't know about the rest of you, is 2 developments further north, up close to Bates Canyon and Drew Bay, right? That are sizable size subdivisions that are 1 acre lots. They're coming in, developers, a couple of developers are coming in. I think we have to be careful about the danger of making a monopoly for developers. Is it okay, are we gonna say it's okay for a developer to come put in 1 acre lots? But if it's a private landowner or they only have 4 more lots, no. Right, is it only the people who have money or who know how to do this stuff are rich, or is it everybody? So just one more thing to consider that I did when I was voting on it and approved for it.
That was all before we became a city. That was the county approved it. So
The zoning, correct, but not the subdivision. The subdivision, we approved as the planning commission. 1 acre lots,
it came from the county that way.
not the subdivision. Subdivision was a new application that we just heard 2 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago.
Where's this?
This is up,
Wayland's property across from my parents and Doc Taylor's.
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't that the
how many
sunset?
homes are on that, Darryl?
80 on the one and 39 on the second.
That's a sunset one, right?
Right.
Yeah,
That's the one county.
Rezone, but not the subdivision. They just did it.
so the county did the rezone back down, or down to 1 acre lots. And then the Erda City Planning Commission approved the subdivision. One last thought before I'm done, and then any other questions you guys have. I mean, sorry, Paul, I'll be a little bit honest. I don't love how it looks. I don't love it. I mean, Scott talked about it 2 weeks ago. He doesn't want to look out his back porch and not be able to see through there. If I'm a buyer and he's selling one of those lots, I'm not going to buy one. I think it's a little bit ugly. But I realize that the role of government is not to worry if it's ugly or if he's going to be able to sell it or not. It's to protect individuals' property rights. And I think that Paul should have the right to be able to do what he wants with that. We talked about having restrictions. Well, RR1 zone has restrictions in it. Setbacks, he's only going to be able to put so many lots on there. So that's why it came from us with, the recommendation was without conditions, because to where his house sits and where the other houses can be, he can only fit so many on there. So just renewing, our recommendation was to approve it without any conditions. Questions, concerns?
Do you feel like the general plan guides the planning commission's decision?
Absolutely. I've had many phone calls about these, and every time, even in the meeting, every time we talk about a rezone, the general plan has been a part of that discussion. I can't speak for every member, but several of the members, when we've talked about it, it's been in their mind.
What would you answer if they say, so what's considered a moderate?
What is considered, or what do I consider?
What the planning
Do you guys have a consensus on what you consider to be medium intensity?
I would say not a consensus. It's a little bit split. The majority, from what I've heard, is it's 1 acre lots. Jerry Hansen says it's 1 acre and half-acre lots. I think, I'm trying to remember, there might be one more voice, I can't remember who it is, but I think it's mostly Jerry Hansen is 1 and half is medium intensity. Mostly everybody is 1 acre lots, including me.
We pretty much have high intensity reserved for Ochre Point.
Correct.
It just, what shocked me so much 2 weeks ago, and I apologize to you, but I kind of feel silly about how I felt about that, but it seemed to me, if Ochre Point is high intensity, 1 acre lots for medium intensity is a given. And low intensity would be 5 and above. But that's one man's opinion. And at least most of the planning commissions.
At least, I'd say you're guaranteed 5, maybe 6 on the planning commission.
So a note of clarification while I have you there. The first time this application came to you, it was tabled, correct?
Correct.
And then they asked him to have a concept plan, which he provided. Then you approved it, correct?
Right.
You feel like you're in a courtroom?
A little bit.
John's, I gotta be careful, John's behind me.
So Corey, I agree with you on a lot of things. The worry I have with, a development of 5 acres here, development of 5 acres here, 10 acres here, is lack of planning. Now, I've fought some developments and I've been against some developments, but I have realized by looking at other towns, when you have a larger plot of land developed by the same developer, you have better planning and it's more well put together. What worries me in Erda is if we do these 10 acre lots and 5 acre lots, we're gonna have, different planning everywhere, and we might have not as good as infrastructure, not as good at planning. And we need good planning in our city, and it's gonna be a good place to live. That's the only thing that worries me about this one, is does it open the floodgates to just random stuff everywhere? We see a lot of that in Salt Lake County, especially towards, Bluffdale and areas like that. It's like, okay, this whole place looks different, and it's a maze, and it's done 10 acres here, 5 acres here. But
It's a little counterintuitive, but I kind of agree with you on this. Larger rezones are easier because they'll be planned. And it'll be a planned development. Some of these smaller ones, for me, are a lot harder because it is hodgepodge. When I look at this and the general plan calls for commercial along the highway. And if someone came in and wanted to rezone that 15 or 20 acres along the highway commercial, it would probably be a unanimous, how fast can we get you there? If that happens, Paul's is the next piece of property over. Would it be appropriate to, if we don't rezone Paul's now and that changes to commercial, what will the rezone on that parcel of Paul's be later? It most certainly won't be RR1. It'll be something much more dense than that to help service the commercial. If we want to put a buffer in between a larger lots to the east and what we hope to be commercial along the highway, we should get that buffer in now to draw that line. That's my opinion, because if it gets held off, one of the comments Paul made is things get denser and denser over time. And if that commercial goes in, that'll be much denser next round if we don't. Putting in 1 acre lots now makes it very hard to go denser later, just because of the way houses will sit. It's pretty easy to buy.
Makes it less feasible financially.
Paul's lot right now is just shy of 10 acres. If you were to buy it, you only have to buy one property owner out. If it's subdivided, you have to buy multiple property owners out, and that's kind of hard to do. So if we want to protect an area of larger lots to the east, doing this now is probably the right thing to do. The Planning Commission stopped it until they got a concept plan that ease some of the fears of the surrounding residents and address their comments and problems they had with the well. My conditions on this would be that it basically follows that concept plan of 5 lots and the road, the access road for those lots be on the west side. I would be okay with those, putting those conditions of the concept plan that he gave us. If he wants to make one lot a little bigger, a little bit smaller, I don't care. It allows him those 5 lots as long as the access road is on the west side, because those were the problems and comments that we got, that I heard at the planning commission. And that is what they forwarded to us, was with a concept plan. I would just make the difference of putting the conditions that it follows that on it, and then I could support it.
What's your thoughts, Scott?
So here's what I think.
Here, if you need me.
Thanks, Corey.
Here's the big difference between your committee and this committee. We answered to the citizens that elected us. So that's a big difference. And we have a duty to represent those specific people that elected us. And so when you consider that, the reason that, no, not the reason, but one of the chief reasons that we are an incorporated city now is because almost anything that wanted to be planned in Erda could be planned in Erda, and the county commission would approve it. That's why we have 1 acre lots. That's why we have Ochre Point. That's why we have a hospital coming up. Well, not a hospital, but a medical. And the people in Erda had no voice. We felt like we had no voice. And so that was one of the chief driving forces behind being incorporated. So that being said, we have Ochre Point, we have this sunset development, and those were approved before we were incorporated. And we now need to make the best effort to accommodate those. However, when you set some of those things aside, now a 1 acre lot in Erda is pretty medium. It is medium intensity, but it has a tendency to push us towards that over medium. I don't know what the word is there. It's seen as those areas that are now designated as 1 acre lots in our county plan or in our city plan is where we want that kind of intensity, the way the city plan calls it. We don't want that kind of intensity creeping everywhere else in the city. And so if we say the strip along the highway is medium intensity, I think 1 acre lots crowds to the small side of what we want in Erda. So I wouldn't say that's a medium. I would say that's to one end. You've got 5 acre lots and larger lots, and then you've got 1 acre lots. That seems like the small end of the intensity definition. So, and personally, Paul, I still feel like what we discussed 2 weeks ago. We made this compromise with the Lawsons that we would let them have the 2 houses that they were allowed, that they could have had on their 5 acre property anyway. And they made an agreement not to build more than that. So that's 2 houses on 5 acres. We're doing a little bit better for Paul because we offered to give him 4 houses on 9 acres. And so I think we're following the same pattern that we did with the Lawsons. If we stick with 4 homes on 9 acres. And I,
The losses are split 3-2, right? So you have a house on a 2-acre lot there.
either way, yeah, they could have done it either way they wanted. So I'm still where we were 2 weeks ago.
Which is the thought I had as you were talking there. Maybe one of the things this would come from planning commission. We have the ability to amend the general plan. Right?
Mhm.
Maybe we consider in the general plan, defining what those intensities are.
Yeah, maybe so.
I mean, that, in the end, that'd be the 5 of you decide that, we'll make a recommendation, and then we'll know what to go with.
Yeah. So that's my thoughts.
Terry, do you have anything to add?
Nope.
Is that fair? Is he allowed to just say nothing?
No,
It's auto fooled and you can remove all doubt.
You guys need to say more? I guess no.
what are your thoughts on it, Kel?
have a hard time doing rezones piece by piece like this. I think I'd be more in favor if there was better planning and more land involved. And then I feel like there'd be better infrastructure, better planning, and we could figure some stuff out, but having a hard time with it.
If commercial goes in
So what are the
and the apartment people come and start applying, it
So-
would be better if 1 acre lots were in the way.
I do agree with that.
I'm not entirely sold though that, if we rezone that commercial property, I think it would come automatic with rezone smaller businesses. And don't we have a problem with access there along that highway? They can't just
Most likely they'll have
just
to build
build a road. They,
between Bryan and Erda Way,
Yeah, it's-
or
yeah,
off
so.
one or the other.
So, I don't know, we have a lot of commercial zoning to the south. We have some good projects that I think are gonna be a benefit, you know, Ochre Point, for example, the hospital. It's not gonna be a hospital, it's just a medical. I think those are gonna be good assets to Erda City. I don't know that we wanna start homes and putting in businesses on the whole stretch of Highway 36.
just concentrate on what's before us?
Well, I think we owe it to citizen of Erda here to give them a vote.
Yeah, I wanna know with
1
conditions,
second,
what's
Paul.
the with conditions?
Do you want to speak on that?
So, you know, if my house wasn't there, that's there, you know, there's 9 acres, you know. If it was zoned R1, there'd be 9 lots, you know. And so, you know, I mean, I already have structures on the property. You know, so, I mean, 5 lots on 9 acres, like I say, is almost a 2-acre density, 1.98. You know, it's not 1 acre. You know, overall density is 1.98, which is pretty much what is across the street at 2.04. Pretty much the same density, you know. I am a little bit open to zoning condition on maximum number of lots, you know. I mean, I'm not wanting to build more than what I have here, you know. An R01 would allow you to do a lot more, and, I really don't think it's an unreasonable thing, just because you don't want it. It kind of violates my personal property rights, just because I don't want it. There was this draft letter that Jeff said was a draft that was published on the state website, that I got an email that said that it was approved the day after the meeting on Thursday. The meeting was on the 27th. This draft was published on the 28th. Posted on the state website.
Well, the state website got it wrong.
They didn't get it wrong. All of our ordinances are published to the website as if
It
they're
wasn't approved.
It was not approved.
Wasn't even voted on.
No, but if you read through it, of what it says, and when it's published, if you read that line right there, would you read that out loud?
Ordinance assigned number 2-35 shall take immediate effect as soon as it shall be published or posted as required by law and deposited and recorded in the office of the city recorder.
So published or posted on a state public website.
It wasn't even voted on.
Well, I know that.
So
So,
Nor was it recorded.
Yes.
yes, I agree,
It was never signed or recorded.
but it was still published.
Even published, it hasn't been signed.
Yeah.
So it's,
I think we're getting off that track. I'll just clarify by saying every one of our ordinances go on the website as if they're passed, whether they're passed or not. When they get passed, they get signed and then recorded and they become law. The ones that don't get passed. So I think maybe at this time it would be beneficial to discuss possible conditions and try to get, as sometimes we say in this council, 3 head nods for some kind of condition. Otherwise, I think we need to bring it up to a vote and vote it up or down as is. Craig mentioned some zoning conditions. I'd be prepared to vote yay on every condition he mentioned.
You can't say what you're gonna vote before we vote.
oh, he can, he just did.
I would be in favor of it.
I look at it, 5 total lots and keeping the road on the west side, because that was one of the concerns that were brought up
By the neighbors.
by neighbors. With those 2 simple conditions, I think while it changes his side of the road a little bit, it blends very, very well with the Skyline Drive. Matter of fact, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference in the 2. It almost just feels like it'd be an extension of, it's an open field there right now. There's only 2 houses on that 40 acres, but there's already 4 lots, and it's going to continue changing. And it's not what I would want for the property, but I don't own the property either. So I think those 2 simple conditions, I could be on board for that. Right, I am on board for those.
So say that again, 5 homes.
5 lots. 5 lots, and the access road has to be on the west side of the property.
Be down along the highway.
No, just on the west side of Paul's property.
This is what the neighbors voiced that they.
I suspect it'll be a 30-foot wide private lane into those back lots. But the neighbors' concerns were that if it wasn't on the west side, it would come right out into their house. And they were about lights at night, and when Paul gave a concept plan that showed the road on the west-hand side and told the neighbor that's where he'd put it, I take him at his word for that, but I also don't think it's unreasonable to put it as a condition, because then if he sells it to someone else, it doesn't change.
Do you have any support for
I do.
Erda head not for that condition?
I'll just make a motion and we'll see where it goes in. I propose we adopt ordinance 22-35, rezoning the property at 524 Bryan Road, Lot 3 Painted Acres subdivision from RR1 to RR5, or RR5 to RR1, with a zoning condition that access road be on the west side of the property and no more than 5 lots be allowed.
I'll second that. Motion? Motion has been made and seconded. Is there further discussion or we're ready to vote?
Accessory dwelling units. Can he put accessory dwelling units on this? Question. Should we add that to a condition?
We did that to on the Lawsons.
What condition do we make on a license for?
On Lawson's, we only gave him 2 residents total, and I was against that condition, and here's the reason why. I don't think someone that has a 1 acre lot on one side of the road or the other side of the road should have any more or less right to their property than someone else. If you have a 1 acre lot, you probably have a right to an ADU, and Lawson's were okay with it because it fit their need at the time, but I don't like putting a condition on that like that. I think number one, it would also be hard to enforce. The zoning administrator is going to have to know what those conditions are. If we do a lot of conditions like this, I think it will just become a problem for us. I'd rather just say if you have a 1 acre lot, you have all the rights that anyone with a 1 acre lot should have.
You okay with that?
That's a good argument. I agree with it.
Any further discussion? Okay, we'll proceed to a roll call vote. I think I started over here.
I'm still-
I'm going to start over here. Is that okay?
You can start with
No, I want to start.
Okay.
I'm still against.
Scott, what is your vote?
No.
Kale?
Yes.
Yes. Vote for. Craig?
yes.
And Terry.
No.
Motion carries. And we will adopt and sign ordinance 22-35
Those conditions.
with these conditions.
With zoning conditions, yeah.
Thank you.
Disaster Mitigation Committee report.
I got an email from Bucky, and he's pretty much got the final plan down, and he wants to meet with Scott and I think it's next week. So that's where that stands.
I'm waiting to hear from him.
I told him when we were available and stuff, and he hasn't set up the time yet, so.
Last I remember, he was trying to form a committee that included citizens and do some meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did that.
Did that happen?
And that kind of came up with, that's how we finalized pretty much the plan. And now he wants to put the final on it, so. To incorporate all them stuff that the committee came up with, stuff, so.
Council representative reports.
Give one quick one from the land use and zoning. We received from Ochre Point their MDA. They want to transfer it. I've sent it to everybody. Sent the newest rendition this afternoon to everyone. We voted already to let the chairman sign the assignment of the MDA
We just didn't
to
know who
the
it
new
was
owner.
at the time.
So that'll happen as soon as the attorney has a full review of it.
Because they made changes, right? So
Yeah,
we gotta
see,
find
he
out
got the last
changes are.
rendition today. I'm sure he'll make that review in the next several days and we'll get that signed. They also sent a easement, conservation easement to us. We'll have the attorney review that and on an agenda for a vote on that, probably in our next meeting.
It's 17 acres of, I don't remember how many were promised, but,
Daryl, has it always been 17 acres or?
Sorry, which easement is it? Is it the water tank or is it the preservation?
Preservation.
Preservation.
The conservation easement on the Geraldine Sager.
So to give a little background, Ochre Point requires 90 acres of open space total. In the negotiations with Erda City, the agreement, what we termed the First Amendment to the MDA, we committed that I believe that Geraldine Sager's family trust is about 37 acres of property. I'm rounding here, 37 acres of property. The Sagers family had from day one requested that they be able to retain 1 acre for 1 residential unit. That left 36 acres in that parcel, and we agreed in the First Amendment that all 36 of that would be included as part of the 90 acres of open space. So basically an agricultural preservation being placed on those 36 acres for part of the open space. What you have before you, if you're telling me it's 17 acres, if this is too much detail, tell me you don't need this detail, but as the process of selling Ochre Point will go in steps. And so in this first step, the buyer is getting a certain amount, and that will correspond in a percentage calculation with 17 acres. And so we're putting that preservation on those 17 acres at this point, providing that to the buyers. And then as that process continues, that the rest of that parcel will also have the preservation easements put on it. But per the First Amendment with Erda City, all 36 acres will be preserved as open space.
Okay, that's the way I remember it.
I have one other thing to add, if when you get done with that one, that I wouldn't mind touching bases on.
go ahead.
I think we're done with that one.
Okay, and this might be more appropriate for John also to comment on. So we have the Second Amendment to the development agreement for Ochre Point. And if you remember, this was nothing more than a minor wording change. There was some wording in the development agreement, in the master development agreement, that was confusing, if not flat out wrong. It just made it through all the reviews, and so we had to come back to you and say, hey, can you help us clean up this? It was clear what the intent was, but it's not what it said. I need to get that recorded. We've been very slow and probably even derelict on our end in getting that recorded. And unfortunately, in the meantime, the county has updated tax ID numbers, parcel numbers. And so the agreement that was agreed, signed by the city and now signed by Ochre Point, the parcel numbers that are on the attachment to them, that are no longer valid. And so when I went to the county recorder's office, she indicated to me, I didn't push the issue, but she indicated to me that we would need to update those parcel numbers. If that makes sense to you, and
Translation table amendment or attachment to that document,
or can I just update the parcel numbers, and it will actually be 2 of the legal descriptions.
So which one we going by? We got 2 today. One was from Joe White and one was from Chickett's. So which one is the right one?
So that's different than this. So when we can finish that, or we can go to that.
Both of them on it. It had the MDA and the general, whatever it is.
So different than what I'm talking about, but we can go to that one first or finish this one, whatever you guys would like to do. So here, let me just show you. So it's actually listed as Exhibit A, and so it's just the parcel numbers and legal descriptions. And so one thing that I can do is just update Exhibit A with the updated parcel numbers and exhibits and just replace it with this, replace the new one with this and keep the other sheets the same and just record it, or would you like to handle it otherwise?
I would say you leave the as is and put a new parcel ID number on the new exhibit.
Does that
No
need,
change in documents, you're putting on the new number, and the old number will be on there.
So
Footnote on it or something?
as I understand it, what you're maybe saying is leave this exhibit, but put a second exhibit with the new accurate parcel numbers and
Where the parcel numbers are usually right on that exhibit.
they're right here.
I'd say new parcel number and write the new parcel number.
And that works except for, unfortunately, some of these legal descriptions were combined subsequent to this. And so I can't just cross that out and write new, well, I guess I could put it. So like, just for example, if it was these two that were combined, I could cross both of them out and put the new tax ID number next to both of them.
Yep.
Okay, I'll do that as long as the county recorder will accept that. If not, I'll be back to you. Thank you. Terry, you brought up another issue, and I'll clear that up if I can. So you've received two things, one from Joe, one from Tom Chekas, who's our attorney. Help me
This is
understand.
the latest one, and I think it's both on the same thing, but I just didn't know if the one from
I
Joe was
haven't seen-
changed.
I don't think I've seen this check this morning.
It's,
I
as
sent
you
it
were
to you
sitting
this
here, you probably
afternoon.
got it.
Oh,
Yes. So you probably haven't seen,
Was it the, basically the ag preservation easement for the property we were talking about?
I have not even read it.
My guess would be
It's the same thing.
our attorneys are working with a buyer's attorney, and we got to satisfy all the attorneys, and so my guess is what you receive later is something that the attorneys have edited.
it is the same two documents, they just must have.
There were some minor word changes in it.
Yes.
So you sent that to John?
Yes.
I just say, send to John whatever the last email you got.
Check it's one.
We'll,
Yeah, he has it, so.
we'll act according to John's recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other representative reports? How about general comment from council?
I got one. I think with the crystal ball that we're getting, we need to start looking forward to getting our own equipment for our meetings and kind of moving to the fire station. Because it's, I mean, the handwriting's on the wall as far as the county goes. They pretty much, hey, you want to be a city or a city, go be a city, so. And with the new, if the new law enforcement thing gets approved, then I'm gonna have to amend the budget because it's not budgeted in, because when we set up our budget, it goes from June to July. And so I was going based on what we had paid the previous 6 months, plus added a few to it, but this is from that, over 32,000 just for this first budget. So it's gonna have to be changed. And so in thinking of that, be thinking about other things, since we're gonna have to amend the budget, that we could be adding to. Like, do we need to increase the IT stuff? Do we need to do, what can we use here or there or whatever, but keep it to where we're not overextending, but, because I'd still like to kind of be as lean as we can until June, so we have a better idea of exactly what our monthly income and stuff's gonna be, because we're not getting anything down the future except for sales tax. We've already got our property, and so that's all we're gonna be getting is sales tax from here on out, so.
Assuming we do need to amend the budget, you'll be working with our council. love to see, I'm not sure what you call it in government, but it's like an income projection report. And just make sure if things keep going the same way they're going right now.
I'll send you the
We
last one.
amend
There's
the
the
budget.
profits and loss and the whole 9 yards. I'll email you that last one I got, so.
But we compare it to what we expect to receive in the future, make sure we're balanced.
Like I said, I'll send you this details.
I think this meeting equipment technology, which I'm not entirely against, but it does sound very expensive to me.
Sooner or later.
I think that with kind of Terry's motion and my second, we're gonna go ahead and have them present to us next time we meet, which we should talk about tonight. I told Jen to invite him to come give a 15-minute presentation, if that's okay.
Who's that?
It's who is it again?
Company is named Televec. It's a company that does office equipment or office meeting equipment and things like that. We have a specific representative who can come and talk with us. So I'm trying to reach out to them to see if we can get him to just come and do a brief presentation on.
Just like our microphones are tied together, he sells an all-in-one device that has a microphone and a speaker built into it. The speakers are linked up, so in small meeting areas like this, we probably can get by without a PA system, and it will yet project our voice out of these speakers. So it'll help everyone be able to hear, and it would allow us to meet just about wherever we wanted to. I'm thinking we probably need 8, we would need 8 units. Of course, he'll make his recommendation, but I'm thinking 1 for recorder, 1 for all 7 members of the planning commission, and then when we have our meetings, we'll just do 6 instead of 8. Anyway, so if it's okay with you guys, we'll have him over for our next meeting, which is next subject. I don't want to meet on Thanksgiving, and so here's what I propose. If the county accepts our counter proposal, if that's what you want to call it, great. I don't think we need a meeting. If they come back with something else that we need to discuss, I would suggest we do an emergency meeting before Thanksgiving. Well before as soon before Thanksgiving as we can, because I'm out of here Tuesday that week.
So we can have it on Wednesday.
I don't believe the county begin until the 28th, do you? 29th,
So we're
sorry.
talking after Thanksgiving anyway.
Yeah.
So if we do need an emergency meeting, great. If we don't need an emergency meeting, even better. But our next official meeting, suppose we have on December 8th.
So that's when the IT guy will be December 8th.
That's right.
If that fits his schedule, let me see if we can get him here.
Awesome.
If he wants to sell some speaker things.
So that will be our next regularly scheduled meeting. We may have to do an emergency meeting the night of the 29th or the 30th, depending on what happens with the county.
I'll be back home before I get this.
So why don't we just figure this 30th?
We may not need a meeting. But yeah, let's figure on the 30th if we do.
Okay.
Any more general comments?
I have one that I didn't get to add before we were voting on the rezone. So kind of wanted to say there's a lot of things that I'm not maybe in favor of in that rezone. But I feel that property rights are a negative right, and I don't feel that anything in that rezone is going to necessarily affect anybody else's property rights, and that is why I voted yes for it. So I feel that it's his freedom to develop it in that way because it's not affecting anyone around him, especially moving the road. That's why I voted for it, even though I think there's some problems with it, it's his right.
Well said. Okay, anything else? Okay. Will we adjourn this meeting? Second, we adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Meeting.
appreciate that.
Lori, did that YouTube work? You were gonna yell at me if it did.
That was working. It was.
Monday.
I don't think so.
Give you a holler.
Got it blown up yet. It was small, but it was broadcast.
Audio is all I really care about.
I leave. Yeah. I'll be here all day. And can I do an
Send somebody to get it. So can I get a phone number and then we'll figure out how to get that from you.
898, I'm giving you my personal number.
Felt like that for. Yeah, now.
That's your cell.
That is my cell number, that's not the city number, that's the number.
Right. We'll have to, we gotta get it from you tomorrow, so somehow we'll